So what happens if you submit a paper, and how does the paper that gets submitted feed into the review process? Typically, the process is that a review manager will select and invite reviewers to review the paper. Once the reviews are in, the review manager makes a decision based on the reviews that have been received and their own reading of the paper. Because, of course, the reviewers make recommendations. Review managers make decisions. So some journals, in particular MIS Quarterly and Information Systems Research, explicitly have two different people doing the roles: senior editor and an associate editor. The associate editor is the one who typically solicits the reviews, receives the reviews, almost makes a decision, but formally it's a recommendation that the senior editor then actually makes the final decision on. These journals separate out the AE and the SE. In some journals, so I know that the Information Systems Journal, it's the journal editor-in-chief who approves all final decisions. And in some journals, sometimes some of the reviews, all of the reviews are undertaken by members of the editorial advisory board. So you don't necessarily go out to a clean panel of reviewers. Occasionally, you go out to perhaps somebody who's been closely associated with journal and some particular specialists. Different levels, different models, different kinds of things. You see this also at conferences where you have associate editors who make recommendations to track chairs who probably make decisions as long as the conference has enough slots available for that track. You can get horribly unnecessarily confused by the different languages, the different levels, etc. That's why we call them review managers. It's just easier to just label it because that's the role that they have. The process that our journal follows is pretty similar to that most journals will follow. First thing that happens is we do some editorial office checks. This is basically before anyone spends any brain time thinking about the paper. Have you put your author name on the front cover? Please just edit the Word file and resubmit it so it doesn't have the author name. Have you done all of your track changes as accepted? We just say, look, please fix that before it goes to us because that's not going to, it's just going to annoy everybody that you've not even accepted the changes. And it's possible for people to forget to upload the actual full paper. The next thing that we do is that we then do some high-level screening by the editors, which is broadly to say, is this a suitable paper for the scope of the journal? Some papers have obvious errors that any reviewer would pick up. There may be some fundamental flaws that mean that even from a very quick skim read, we know that it's not going to make it through the review process. You basically have done this is how the technology works paper and no research or whatever. We also have some genres that we do not currently accept. ITP personally does not like structured literature reviews, because we'd be much more interested in what comes out of your literature review rather than as an input. We also desk reject what we describe as replication studies, and these are essentially people who've used TAM or UTOUT or Theory of Planned Behavior, TPB, or whatever. So having been screened by the editorial office, we then send an email notification, which has both the title and the abstract, to all of the review managers saying, we've just received this paper. Is anybody interested in being the review manager for this particular paper? Occasionally we get papers that nobody wants to take up, which means it's a good idea to have an intriguing title and a descriptive abstract so that people go, this is a paper I would be interested in being a review manager for. Or this is a paper that I'd be interested in being a reviewer for if I receive the title and the abstract as well. A good title is always really, really helpful. The review manager has agreed or been asked to be the review manager for this paper. what do they then do? So they look for suitable reviewers that could be based on their own social network. Alternatively, I might use the keywords of the paper and match those against the keywords of potential reviewers in the review management system and find a suitable reviewer in that way. I then send out invitations to review, and I repeat that process until I've got enough people who have agreed to review the paper for me, which is typically 2 to 3 reviewers per paper. In terms of the different types of review process, the most common in IS is to do double blind. So the reviewers don't know the author and the author doesn't know the reviewers. Single blind, the reviewers know the authors, but the authors don't necessarily know the reviewers. Other fields have a completely open peer review process, author names on the paper, you know exactly who the reviewers are. Even more extreme for an open process is you publish the reviews alongside the paper. Not very common in information systems, but potentially an interesting development. And then the final model is the post-publication review, where essentially the journal publishes the paper in draft, and then people can review it when they come across it and offer comments and improvements, and the paper can be improved in that way. The disadvantage with this model is that there will be some papers that would potentially get thousands of people contributing reviews, and other papers that would never get looked at because it was too specialized, too novel, too difficult, or whatever. The traditional review process, if we've agreed to review your paper, you will get 2 reviews and a review manager decision. So when do reviewers complete their reviews? Typically, we find that most people do their review just on or just after the deadline that was specified in the invitation to review. Lots of these review management systems send you a nice email just to remind you that that paper that you've agreed to review, the review is due in a week's time. So what does that imply for a really strong paper? So in an ideal world, you submit it on Monday. We then allow 7 days for the editor to do the screening, because the editors have got lives as well, surprisingly. I screen it, it's great, we can send it to a review manager. The review manager picks it up immediately. They then have some other things to finish off. They read the paper, they invite the reviewers all agree to do the review immediately. So it's gone out to reviewers, they've all agreed immediately. They all complete their reviews within 21 days. When the reviews are back, the review manager obviously wasn't expecting everyone to be so good at getting the reviews back in time, has a couple of other things to finish off, but within 7 days also completes that decision-making process. And because it's such a fantastic paper that all the reviewers absolutely love it, within 42 days of submission, the paper enters the production process. That's the ideal model. That's not necessarily going to be perfect, because each of these processes can introduce some delays.
Great, thanks Edgar for joining us and for giving us this outline of what characterizes the review process. We're now looking forward to the reviewing workshop with you. Thanks again, let's give a hand for Edgar.